Why pranayama? Pranayama stalls the cellular aging process. So your cells live longer. There's less stress on the physiological and psychological responses. When you practice pranayama, your perception of man-made time is changed. Most of us are in the left frontal cortex, which is based in man-made time. As you practice pranayama, you move into the right frontal cortex. There is no man-made time. There's just space. And when there's space, it's very hard to get stressed out. You don't feel cornered, and you feel comfortable inside your uniform, your skin, this hot water bottle. When you're working with yourself and working with clients, the first thing that you want to do is you want to change the pace of the breathing. This helps scrub the blood. This helps strengthen the vagal tone of the vagus nerve. And when you change the pace of the breathing, it alerts your mind and alerts the nervous system that you're okay to relax. When you're in a state of hyperactivity, you're not relaxed. When you are relaxed, the pace of your breath is slower. Your exhale is longer than your inhale. The depth of the breathing. How far can you inhale inside the cells of your body? Inhale into your nerve endings before you can't inhale anymore. If I told you that you could sit here and inhale for minutes without stopping, you'd say, I couldn't do it. Well, you've just trained your mind to stop inhaling at a point where you don't want to feel anymore. And you gradually rob yourself of life force energy. If you wanted to, you could inhale here for minutes. It would be a cardiovascular workout. But you just keep pushing that diaphragm down. And as carbon dioxide are burned in the turbines of your nose, and you keep inhaling, you just keep inhaling. And this puts more oxygen in your bloodstream. You know, the first thing they look at when you go into the hospitals, what is the level of oxygen in your bloodstream? And from there, they're going to work on their interventions. So you want to have the highest amount of oxygen as possible in your bloodstream. And what is the length of your breath? How long can you exhale before fear overwhelms you and you might not be able to get another inhale in? Most of us in our culture need to work on that lengthening of the exhale. So number one, change the pace of the breathing. Number two, add some depth to the inhale. So you feel rib 1 and 2 lift off the top sleeve of your lungs. Number three, add some length on the exhale. Your autonomic nervous system will reset, and away you go. Breath retentions. Internal retention. When you're holding the breath in, you're taking the molecules of inhale, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, helium, and you're pushing that deeper into your nervous system. It's an amazing energizing tool. Now, I'm not saying holding the breath in until your face turns purple. Okay? This is a skillful application. On the exhale, when you have an external retention, when you hold the breath out, the reason why you don't die is because there is a lot of stale air in the alveoli sacs of your lungs, which exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. And at that point, the brain will then go to those alveoli sacs and it'll incinerate that stale air immediately. And then on the next inhale, you have the same energy you had when those sacs were open years ago. So it's an amazing rejuvenation process. The holding in is something that's fairly new. The external retentions have been going on for thousands of years in a lot of the traditions. The holding in is something that is basically in the medical field, the allopathic care you would hear as inspiratory muscle training. Training the muscles of the inhale, primarily the diaphragm, which starts down in the lumbar spine, comes up like an umbrella and ties in underneath the lower lobes of your lungs, and what's below it is the liver, the gallbladder, stomach, spleen. So getting this diaphragm muscle involved is very, very important. Why pranayama? Switching the HPA axis from hypothalamus pituitary adrenaline to hypothalamus pituitary serotonin. This gets a little tricky because if you go back into ancient times, primitive times, there was always a fear of death. There was an attack, or you were trying to get something to eat. You were a predator. So at that point, which we've been the longest, it's just been a couple hundred years since we started to use even language to communicate, our nervous system is more familiar with this HPA axis. So one of the things the hypothalamus does is it regulates how do you feel about the present moment and the level of safety that's available to you. The hypothalamus reports to the pituitary gland, and anytime there's something different or stress, adrenaline comes in, and adrenaline cleans up the mess. It gives you that burst of energy to either compete or judge or make a decision to remove you out of a life-threatening situation. But again, when was the last time you were in a life-threatening situation where you needed the superhuman strength of adrenaline? When you practice pranayama, what happens is you're changing the DNA of the body. You're changing the neuroplasty of the brain. You're rewiring your brain. Something occurs. Something's different. Hypothalamus reports to the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland then secretes serotonin, which is compassion. Because most of what's killing you is thoughts and feelings. Now, granted, the adrenaline will be there if the car is coming towards you and you need to get out of the street. But most of the risks that we're working are created by the mind. The fear is created by the mind. So, as you practice pranayama, you're reprogramming the human machine to go forward into the future with serotonin being the primary hormone that shows up inside you when there's something different, when there's someone who doesn't see it the way I do, when there is an opportunity for hate, you choose not to react. This is going to stop the wars on the planet. This is going to allow communication and dialogue rather than missiles and bombs if we don't get along with each other. And this is either going to save the planet or it's not. Nothing gets solved in war internally, and they're still fighting about the same stuff externally when we go into war. So when you practice pranayama, you're alerting the hypothalamus that when something is different, I can reason with it. I can intuitively, intellectually move through it. I don't have to close myself off and separate myself from the relationship outside of me, which means I'm just separating myself from my heart. I don't have to compete against the person outside of me, superiority, inferiority, power grab crap. So that is one of the biggest things that I see coming to the future with pranayama is the reprogramming, the rewiring of the brain and how the autonomic nervous system responds with that. Pranayama is a major remover of mucus, phlegm, fat, inflammation, waste. What is the number one cause of the top 10 diseases? Mucus, phlegm, fat, waste that are undigested. So the inner walls of your organs become clogged. When you practice pranayama, the inner walls of these organs become clear. And when the inner wall of these organs are filled with prana, you feel lighter. And when you're lighter in your organs, you are lighter in your heart. And when you're lighter in your heart, the thoughts become lighter. So pranayama is a major remover of toxins. When you look at Western exercise, the way they remove toxins is very shameful to the body. It's mouth breathing. You raise your heart rate up very, very high. You fill your body with acidity. You wear out your joints. And you're giving away all your power that you're going to need when the train goes around the bend in the present moment to clear your body and mind of inflammation. We don't want that to happen. So when you're practicing pranayama, you're strengthening the respiratory muscles so you don't have to work as hard. Your heart rate doesn't have to get as high to clear the mind of imprints that are disturbing you. Pranayama has always been the gateway to meditation, regardless of what tradition you're working on. Meditation, that altered state of consciousness. The neurobiology. Obviously, we have two brains in one head. Most of us are living in the left frontal cortex, which is where the stress is coming from. The corpus callosum is a series of matted nerves that separate the right frontal cortex from the left. The left is based on cognitive function, rationalization, words, numbers. The right is based on creativity, dance, intuition, shapes, colors. So, working with changing the left male brain dominant. And let's face it, we were all brought up in a male culture, so all of us were being trained to be a man, for the most part, unless we had a really super cool dad. shifting that to the prefrontal cortex of the right side of the brain where you can let things go. And then what happens there is transformation. You rewire your brain. As the brain rewires, one of the major tools that rewire the brain is the tone of your vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It runs from the center of the brain down through the throat. It pierces the heart and lungs, connects with the diaphragm muscle, and vagus in this tone means to wander, and it has little tentacles that go into every organ.